Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation? Gratitude doesn't always have to be this big, grandiose thing. Every single morning when I get into my journal, which actually it's over there in the backpack, so I'll grab it. But every day when I get in my journal, I write down three things that I'm grateful for. And it's simple stuff. And it's look, and eventually, like, you're gonna run out of things to be grateful for. You can only be like, I'm grateful for a hot coffee so many times, right? But you can be grateful for being in this moment and recognizing one of the empirical truths about life. Like, this is it. This is happening. There is an infinitesimally small percentage of a chance of a likelihood that you would even be here right now. And I know that maybe getting to this point in this moment sucked and it wasn't fun. And there was pain and there was suffering and there was hurt. But there's also some in there has to be, just because of the way that the world works, just because of the way the universe works, because of yin and yang and the balance to the universe. There has to be positivity in there somewhere as well. There has to be gratitude in there somewhere as well. And that's just for the little things. And, one of the things that I think that's really important is that we have to get out of our own space. When I go back and I rewind my life, when I was about 29, 30 years old, spent a tremendous amount of time by myself. A lot of that was about introspection. A lot of it was about looking at and assessing all of the pain, the suffering, the trauma, and the abuse that I'd been through. A lot of it was having the space to really understand what was happening in therapy and group therapy and coaching and finding a space and honestly in being alone to understand myself better, not getting consumed with all of the activities of the world that can call my attention. And in that, that's really the space where I discovered gratitude because I found myself being thankful for the tears. I found myself being thankful for the anger. I found myself being thankful for those moments when I would sit in my therapist's office and be like, dude, I do not want to be here right now. I hate this. Right. And the gratitude and the thankfulness for that came because I knew that even though it hurt and even though it sucked and even though I did not want to be there, it was moving me towards my goal. And ultimately, my goal was very simple. It was, can I be okay with the reflection in the mirror? And that was it. And gratitude played a big role in that because what happened was the more that I could just be okay with me, the more thankful I became for me. We're embedded, we're ingrained, we're groomed into believing that we're not enough, into believing that we don't matter, into believing that all the abuse and the things that we suffered were deserved. But I'm telling you right now, they weren't. And you're not culpable for those things. It breaks my heart that you had to experience those things. But you're at this precipice right now where you have to make a decision about what's next, where you get to decide, where you get to say, Tony Robbins taught me this. So I was in this private coaching with Tony and we're having this conversation. And he said this before, but for whatever reason, this particular day, probably just because of the context of the conversation, it really struck me. He goes, life is happening for you. It is not happening to you. And it just made me think like, yeah, I get that, Tony. Like life's happening for me, but man, a lot of this for me stuff is fucking sucked. And he laughed and he goes, yeah, it does, but you're doing something with it. And that's the thing that I think about. Like there is this small fraction of dare I say gratitude for the experiences of my past. Because of those, it's allowed me to be where I am today, to coach thousands of people, to have Think Unbroken podcast that is one of the biggest shows in the world, to be able to write best-selling books. But most importantly, all that stuff aside, like seriously, and I mean this thoroughly, if I if I close this down tomorrow, I would be good. I would be good because you know why? Because I get to go look in that mirror and I get to love myself every single day. And I don't look for the outside world to give me that. because it starts with the internal gratitude that I have for my willingness to show up in my life every day. And that's the thing, people ask me like, how do you write books and have a podcast that airs every single day and, be traveling the world all the time and speaking on these stages and coaching all these people and watching lives transform. Guys, it's because I started with myself first. And that's the thing that you have to do. We're so afraid to invest in ourselves because of worth, because of shame, because of guilt. We don't think that we deserve it. And this will really blow your mind. When I was 26, I looked down at my feet and I realized that my shoes cost more money than I invested in my personal development in the entirety of my life. And if that don't fuck you up, like, I don't know what will, right? So many of us were scared of $49 or $100 or $300 or $3,000 even, whatever that number is. And you will never lose money when you bet on yourself. You will never lose when you choose you. You will never falter when you look in the mirror and you say, I do this for me. And it starts with a little bit of gratitude, starts with a little bit of self-love and just going, I deserve this. Like, you deserve to have a transformed life. You deserve to leave trauma in the past. You deserve to look in the mirror, to love yourself, to be free of the things that you've suffered and to be unbroken. Like, this idea about Think Unbroken, this isn't just conceptual. This is real. There have been thousands of people who've gone through these programs that we've created, and their lives are completely different because they decided to bet on themselves. Then when I ask them why, they go, because I believe that at this point, unless I do something, nothing's going to change. And it's true. And a lot of these folks who I coach, when they start this program, when they come through Think Unbroken, whether it's reading the book or a conference or coaching app or anything, we all start at the same place.